Hello, everybody. I'm here to do a little bit of a playthrough of Braid and just talk about Braid and talk about what I think about the game and some of my thoughts on puzzle design and some of my thoughts on this game, which is, after all, my favorite game, period. I've been around for a brief 25 years, so maybe I haven't played enough games to have a real educated opinion of what I should think about games or what's the best kind of game. But I really like this game, and this game has given me a new appreciation for games. I should say it gave me a new appreciation for games back when I played it first in 2008, which has been a little while now. I mean, it's 2015, date the video, but it's been a little while, so so let's just take a look at the game. So obviously, as you can see, the game starts out in this really just stunning and beautiful, kind of like a painterly image here. It's like the title screen of the game, but it's already the game. Like, it's not a title screen. I can run around, and so you see I run to the right here, and the flames of the title disappear, and all we're left with is the flames of this city burning down into the night. And so we move to the right and head down a slope and into this house, this castle, this house here. And of course the house is, it's a house, but it's also representative. It's also Tim's thoughts. It's Tim's dreams. It's not a literal house, but it is a figurative. It's a figurative house and a literal house, which is kind of, it's sort of pretentious hogwash or whatever. But that's sort of what it is. So, there's a few different rooms in the house here. A ladder, which is, it's kind of unusual for a house to have a ladder, but well, it's a video game, and what are you gonna do? 2D, it's sort of hard to do staircases because you can't really go down the staircase, and I mean you can. Castlevania tried to do that, but it's not fun to deal with, that kind of thing in 2 dimensions. And every house needs a bathroom. You got the little controls up there. Of course, I'm playing with a controller, so I'm not really using the keyboard controls, but whatever. I think the resolution on the console version, you couldn't really see those symbols anyway. Maybe you could. It's been a while since I played the console version, but anyway. So we'll go into World 2, which is, of course, the first world that you reach in the game. There's a story in the game that's told through text, and part of what's great about the game is that the story really means a lot to the game, and it really enhances, I think, the appreciation of the mechanics and the, I don't know what you call it, mechanical storytelling or whatever that's in the game. But it's also totally optional. Like, you can just totally just run past these. Like, who cares? Like, if you don't care about the story, you don't have to think about it. It's not like it's forced into, oh, well, you need to think about the story. You better read that, or else you're not going to understand. Like, the game treats you with respect. It treats you as though you're intelligent. Like, you'll get it even if you don't have that story. I happen to really like the story. I think that it means a lot, and it adds a lot to the game as far as a specific interpretation on part of the designer. I think it does add a lot to the game, but it's not really necessary, and so I kind of feel like it's important to point out that you can avoid it. Anyway, I guess I should say this video is really intended for people who've already played Braid, not people who haven't played the game and don't really have any concept of what it is. Like, this is not really let's talk about what Braid is. Maybe you should play the game, because really you should play the game. But, whatever. I can't stop people from watching a video instead of playing a game. But that's what this video is for. It's for people who've played the game and who want to, maybe glean a little insight about the game that they haven't gotten before. So this story here, you know, in the first world is pretty simple. It's about, okay, Tim, he's rescuing the princess, and the princess has been snatched by a horrible and evil monster, and Tim made a mistake. So this is kind of talking about a figurative and literal duality here kind of already. Like, we're already talking about, okay, well, Tim's made a mistake, and Tim's off to rescue the princess, and we know that, I mean, if you played the game, you know that the princess is kind of not exactly what maybe she would appear to be. It's not the basics of like, okay, well, it's a Super Mario Brothers, well, we're going to rescue the princess. I mean, I guess that's also the point, is that it comes off as literal when you first look at it at first blush, but it's also a figurative thing. Anyway, I don't mean to wax too poetic, but more or less the story here is trying to talk about, okay, what are the mechanics of this world? What's a interpretation of the mechanics of the world, which is the ability to rewind time. So what, on a basic level, what's the reason that you might want to go back in time? And it's to undo your mistakes, to maybe to win back a lover, to win back the princess. Maybe that's why we want to go back in time. Anyway, so let's go into the level here. Enough talking about the story. I mean, I can talk about the story all day, but really it's kind of beside the point, because the point of the game is the mechanical aspects of the game. And one of the great things about the way this game teaches the mechanics is none of it is really that forced. A lot of games nowadays are really enforcing how you think about the mechanics through a strict tutorial, and really this world of the game is the tutorial, but it's about as light as a tutorial could be in a modern game. Of course, you have to have a giant sign labeled A to jump here, because controllers that we have nowadays are so ridiculously complicated that you can't do like you could have done in the first Super Mario Brothers or something, where it's like, well, we can kind of just expect that the player is going to be able to press a few buttons and figure out what they do. Like, there's too many buttons, so we need to tell you, okay, well, press A, that does something. Oh, well, it jumps, so it can get you up these blocks. Anyway, that's not that interesting, but, there's a few things here. We're introducing a gap. Okay, well, you can jump over a gap, and even this gap is specifically sized so that it's the length of your jump, Of course, you can fall in it and you can jump up and all that, but, it's explaining either consciously or subconsciously certain aspects of the ability to jump. Now, here is this lovely sign with a control stick on it. I remember when I first played this game, it was on a CRT television, because this was 2008, and I didn't have a flat screen HD TV or anything like that, so I totally couldn't tell what this sign said at all, but anyway, it's a control stick, and so you press up and you're like, oh, I can climb around. Anyway, this is all pretty basic, I guess, if you played any games, but, it's still smart in the sense that it's explaining the mechanics of the game in a way that's nonverbal, in a way that it doesn't feel offensive, because there's a lot of games that really do that nowadays. It's a little less common, I think, after this game sort of paved the way, but a lot of games still do that. They still really kind of force on you, well, here's the controls. So anyway, I missed a little thing here, which is it says that, okay, well, if you push over to the side, it's trying to point out that you will fall off the edge, but if you held over, then you could land on this platform. So it's already trying to do, okay, well, here's sort of an interesting consequence of that. And even these platforms sort of echo the earlier platforms over there where I hopped up. And it's all very expertly architected in a way to try to show you different aspects. Like, okay, here's a platform that I can pass through. Maybe you don't realize that. Maybe you just jump across. But you realize, okay, well, I can pass through it. But you also have a ladder here, so that gives you the opportunity to realize, oh, a ladder can be climbed the same as that wall over there. of course, there's, you know, obstacles that require you to jump, gaps that require you to jump. Now, you could jump or you could fall here. It doesn't really matter, you know, there's no real requirement. And here, you know, the ladder's set in your way where ostensibly you can think, well, maybe I could climb down this ladder. You know, like if you've never played a platformer before, maybe you think that. In a way, I kind of think Braid is not totally designed for people who have never played a platformer, which is maybe one of its only flaws, but if you're going to try to make like a high concept sort of puzzle platformer game where the platformer itself is not really the interesting aspect of the game, it's the stuff that you build on top of it, then maybe it's not really possible to do that in a way that doesn't require you to sort of understand a platformer already. But, you know, you've got things that are trying to explain certain things to you, like, okay, well, here's a dude, and there's a little sign there that says, jump on his head. And it's like, okay, well, I'll jump on his head. You know, which even Mario doesn't really explicitly explain that, but, you know, there's a pictograph here representing, okay, well, maybe this is what you should do. But you don't have to even know that you can climb up and down ladders. You can just walk underneath here. And say we think, okay, well, what is this pit of spikes? That looks kind of dangerous, but let's just, let's see what it does, you know? And at that point, it's like, okay, X, what does this do? And so you press X, and you're like, what does that do? What was that? So you hold. You start to think, what is this? This is odd. And the music starts to move backwards. A little thing comes up, tells you something you can do. You're like, okay, what does that do? Oh, now it looks like I'm moving forward again. Okay, what does that do? Pretty quickly you realize, wait a second, I can rewind everything! Everything! Everything that I did, I can rewind. The whole game. There's no limits. So let's move back. Enough lollygagging about. Let's get this puzzle piece. And this puzzle piece requires that I understand a few things. Namely, that I understand that I should jump over pits of spikes, and that I can jump, and therefore I am, in a sense, rewarded with a basic puzzle piece. Oh, I forgot to mention 3 easy pieces. 3 easy pieces. Let's go back. Let's go to clouds. Okay. Does it even say that again? Okay, 3 easy pieces. 3 Easy Pieces is the name of this level. Which 3 Easy Pieces is, of course, well, maybe not of course, but it's a reference to a Richard Feynman series of lectures called 5 Easy Pieces, which is about quantum mechanics, which maybe isn't exactly the easiest thing. Actually, I'm not sure if it's about quantum mechanics. I don't know. He's done a lot of lectures about physics, but he was a theoretical physicist whose focus was mostly on quantum mechanics. But anyway, great physicist. You should look into his books. Well, they're not really his books, but they're sort of ghost-written Richard Feynman books. Even if you're not interested in physics, oh here, look, I am solving the game. Even if you're not interested in physics, the books. So You Must Be Joking, Mr. Feynman, and what is that second book? It's not coming to me right now. Anyway, there's a second book by the same author, and those are really they're not really about physics exactly, but they're sort of a series of interesting anecdotes. They're kind of like a memoir of Richard Feynman, who was this really brilliant guy who just who loves science and had a real appreciation for, I think, some of the more interesting aspects of being alive. So, of course, you can look into his scientific discoveries and work and all that, and mathematics and all that. And I think a lot of that's really interesting. I mean, some of it is, as far as I'm aware, somewhat out of date, but it's still very cool. And there's a lot of insight to be gained from studying that stuff. I guess I just say that in the sense that, like, I haven't looked into a lot of the quantum mechanical stuff, and I know that has to inform this game in some way, but I haven't really done it. So, but it's worth looking into, I'm sure, because Richard Feynman was a real brilliant guy. Anyway, I believe, from what I can tell here, actually, when you're just looking at it, Tim very clearly is looking at the puzzle piece when we're close to it. I mean, you can see when he's over here. Well, maybe he's always looking up. I don't know. Anyway, maybe that was a terrible observation. I thought he was looking at the puzzle piece. But this is another really basic puzzle piece, which requires that we sort of understand this sign over here that says, okay, well, you can bounce off the guys' heads, bounce off of these little Goomba-looking dudes, the Monstars' heads, and therefore you can get a puzzle piece. Well, let's kill him anyway, just so we can say the other thing, which is that maybe you realize, oh, well, he comes out of the cannon. But anyway, you have to know that you can bounce off their heads in order to get that puzzle piece. And then here's a secondary puzzle piece that requires you to realize that maybe if we bounced off of 2 of their heads, we would go higher. Which, you know, could take a little bit of time for you to realize that, but that's all it really shows you is, okay, well, you bounce off of multiple enemies' heads, and then you'll gain height. And this, again, shows you how to jump here. Considering maybe you went through all this without knowing how to jump, which is probably possible, then we need to absolutely assert that you know how to jump by the time we get to the end here, and understand that there are platforms that you can jump through and land on. And so there's several different platforms here that require you to do that. And of course a door, which you've already entered a door before you got here, so anyway. Okay. So here's another little short jump here that's like, okay, well, I know how to jump, so a key and a door. Well, let's say we go back this way. Maybe I went up here and I looked at the door, and obviously it looks like a lock, and I can't seem to get past it, so we get a key. You know, again, like I said, I don't really think the game is totally intended for people that are absolute amateurs, but it does a really good job considering at explaining its mechanics, even on a very basic level. So we grab the key, we're like, okay, well, it looks like a lock and a key, so let's take the key to the lock. And then the door unlocks. And then there's the clouds. And so we're rewarded here for both getting through the locked door, and also we've discovered clouds. I'm like, okay, well, it's a moving platform. It's the first moving platform in the game. You know, maybe we haven't really thought about it that much. We just rode over here. But if we get over here, it's like, okay, well, how do I... Like, these things are moving me in the wrong way, so maybe I need to take a little bit of a leap of faith. Now, if I'm clever, I might realize the game is about ability to rewind time, so maybe I should just rewind, but you probably wouldn't think about that the first time. And so we're hopping here, and we get a puzzle piece. So it's already setting up, I feel like, a motif here, which is that the puzzle piece is kind of inconsequential in a way. Like, the puzzle piece is not a goal. The puzzle piece is like a nod of recognition from the developer in a way. I mean, it is a goal, but it's also not a goal, you know, like it's set up as a thing to require you to do something, because if you didn't, for instance, go across this gap and realize, oh, well, okay, if I time my jumps carefully, then I can get over here, then you would not have knowledge that you would need to go forward. Now, of course, there's a guy here, and we maybe kill him or whatever, and we're thinking, okay, well, what do we do? And there's not much we can do, actually, due to the fact that, again, spoilers, this game is, or this video is not really intended for people who haven't played the game. We need to have the platform here to get down here. And there's not a platform yet because we haven't gotten the puzzle piece that has the platform in it. Now, John Blow, the designer of this game, has stated before that he thinks maybe this was a fault on the part of him as a designer, but I don't know, you know, I mean, the point was kind of to encourage players to go non-linearly about solving the puzzles, because, you know, part of the design of the game is that it's trying to be non-linear. None of the puzzles are really that much more important than the others. I mean, some of them are easy to get, as in that first section there, but you know, there's no real order to the puzzles. A lot of them, they're kind of just there, you know. I guess that's hard to explain exactly, but you know, the puzzles are natural consequences of the system, and so some of them don't really have a definite order. And so that's kind of what this is intending to illustrate is, okay, well, let's force you as a player to do something. But I think the main reason John thinks that that's kind of a failure on the part of the design is like forcing the design in that way is kind of imposing your will as a designer, and maybe that's not exactly the best thing, because a lot of players will sit here and be like, how do I get this, you know? Maybe they'll think, oh, there's got to be something I got to do, and they'll sit here for a long time trying to solve this puzzle before they realize that they can't, which is kind of a negative experience for the player, and it's entirely the fault of the designer. It has nothing to do with anything other than the designer arbitrarily decided that certain puzzle pieces would only be given in later puzzles. Anyway, hunt. So we move on to hunt, which is a, well, not exactly reoccurring motif, but it's used twice, I believe, in the game, this same design, with different mechanics. I'm not sure which came first. It's really kind of hard to say. I would think that this one probably came first, at least in some sense. And the crux of this puzzle, really, if you want to call it a puzzle, I mean, that's sort of the part about Braid in a lot of ways, and part of John Blow's puzzle design is that a lot of times the puzzles are not really that complex, but the puzzle element of this is that, you know, if you were to come in here normally, which let's go back and re-enter the room. Like if I was just to come in here and, well, let's just absentmindedly go through here, you know, I'd probably kill this guy, and oh well, we'll kill this guy, because, you know, that's just sort of how you play a platformer, is kill all the guys. And then you get to this point and think, how do I get up there? And maybe you've forgotten that you killed the guy. Maybe you haven't, but in any sense, there's an aspect of regret, you know, represented here, that you need to have not done something in order to progress. Like the things that you've done in the past are now holding you back. And the ability to rewind time means that you can go back and undo those things, and therefore have that opportunity that you limited yourself from by, you know, in this representation, killing a guy. You know, I mean, it can all seem a bit overblown and pretentious or whatever to say all this, but you know, I think for an intellectual and analytical person, you look at the mechanics of this game, and there's kind of these messages in there about what does that mean? You know, what does that mean? Like, how can you interpret that into your everyday life or whatever, into the way you think about the world? And you know, maybe I'm not totally being super coherent about that, but you know, but there's something there about regret. There's something there about what it means to be able to go back in time, or what you know, why you would want to do that. Like, this represented in this puzzle, that's not, the puzzle itself is not really, it's not like a typical puzzle in an adventure game or something. Like, this puzzle is very basic. Like, there's some basic rules of the game, and this comes out of that if I needed an enemy to bounce on to get across a gap, and I killed it before I realized that I needed it, then that matters, you know, then that holds me back. So I get a puzzle piece. And that puzzle piece has a bridge, so it's really only one puzzle room that I'm required to go further into the game before I can actually solve this. And spoilers, but you know, if you played the game, then you know, okay, well, this is kind of a clever thing here. It's like, it looks like a bridge. Looks very much like those bridges up there. so it also behaves as a bridge. Which you could say maybe this is kind of outside of the realm of the other mechanics of the game, but in a sense it isn't too, because there's an aspect to the game that's about minimalism and about maximum utility of the game elements. So because there is this painting that you can move pieces around, it really only makes sense from a design standpoint that the pieces should interact with the other game mechanics in some way. So of course I can't do both of these because these puzzle pieces rewind. So if I rewind past the point that I got them, then I lose them. But anyhow, so I have to exit and re-enter because I need this. Actually, I don't need this guy now that I think about it. I could have got both of those. Anyway, just a thought, I guess, about what you can and can't do. So it really doesn't matter, I guess. I was thinking I maybe needed to have the monster in order to get up to this platform, but I guess I don't. So it's really just a matter of doing this. I believe there's a possible way to like jump across. It may require to have both the pieces, but usually this is how I solve the puzzle, which is to just do this weird kind of balancing act. And of course there's the cloud here that takes like 45 minutes to move over there. Which I'm not going to do that puzzle. I'm not going to sit here for 45 minutes and wait on this cloud. But even that is, although it's a star puzzle, so I think it kind of stands outside of the normal puzzles, and it kind of is given free rein to be a little bit eccentric in a way. It still fits into the overall concept of the game, which is like one aspect of time is that sometimes you just have to wait a long time on things. You have to be patient, you know, like that's part of time. Like you're a slave to time in a way, so sometimes it's your opportunities only come when you wait, you know. Like, I don't know, I guess that kind of fits even into the whole puzzle design thing, where sometimes you have to, when you're designing a puzzle game like this, you have to put, I guess you'd say, like you have to invest real world clock time in order to solve puzzles, like, or not solve puzzles, but I mean figuratively solve puzzles, but in order to come up with solutions for your game's design, sometimes it just takes time. Like you just have to think about it, and it doesn't come to you initially, and you just have to sleep on it. Anyway, let's move on. So, Leap of Faith. And obviously the names of these areas are indicative of some of the aspects of the puzzles there. Most obviously here, the Leap of Faith being that puzzle over there, further over there, where you have to leap into a pit. But there's other things here, such as that, where we're trying to say, okay, well, there's parallels between some of these puzzles, such as these guys falling into a pit to their death, and maybe they have faith in you or whatever. I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too much into the mechanics, but and the naming of the puzzle rooms. But anyhow, so there's some more puzzles here that do some really kind of basic exploration of what it means to be able to rewind. Mostly these ones in this room are about timing. Such as, getting this guy onto this platform here is kind of a difficult timing thing. I mean, you can get him onto a platform. Oh, can I make this jump? Oh, I can't make that jump. Well, anyway. So I have to rewind to go back. Anyway, I won't do that. But, some of these things like this are generally a difficult timing puzzle. Of course, you have that, flaming fuse there to use to time your jump, but maybe you screw up and you're like, oh, okay, well, let's go back. And the ability to rewind allows you to time your jump in such a way that you can get across here fairly easily. I mean, you could do it without that, but it's a peculiar aspect of that ability to rewind that challenges like that become easy. I don't want to say trivial, but, you know, challenges that would normally be difficult like this. You know, say I jump down here and I don't know, oh, I died, you know, in most games when you would die there, it's like, well, okay, back to the beginning of the level. But in this game, it's like, okay, I can just rewind. And maybe I realize, okay, well, when did I have to correct? And okay, you avoided that. And oh, well, I get hit this side of this guy, so... You know, like, there's lots of things to avoid here, and normally they might be difficult, or, oh, I died. How did I know? You know, it's like, how would I have known there was a guy gonna fall there? But because I can rewind, I can avoid him because I knew that he was gonna fall. And so, of course, there's a reward here for you know, solving this timing puzzle, as you would say. You know, so there's lots of aspects to this about timing. And then, of course, the piranha plants are introduced, which are another, in a way, a timing thing that you need to time your ability to get through there. Yeah, I don't know, you know, it's a lot of times it's hard to really speak intelligently about the puzzles in this game because there's a lot of subtleties to them and things to think about. But still, I feel like this world is probably the simplest world in the game, and maybe there's the least amount to say about it. But yeah, so that's World 2, or World 1, however you want to say it. I mean, it's World 2, but it's the first world that you play in Braid, and of course we finish it over here by lowering the flag, as in Super Mario Brothers, and getting to the castle. And this little dude who looks kind of like a Yoshi, that's maybe a guy in a Yoshi suit. I don't know what's going on here. Princess in another castle. And, okay, of course we can move on to World 3, but I think I'll save that for the next video, and that's just a little bit of me rambling about Braid and rambling about the puzzles in Braid and kind of what I think about them. Yeah, so I'll see you guys next time.